Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week, you can see it. You can see it on the title. I always wonder, in my head sometimes, what I think is going to be maybe a bigger episode or a more interesting episode. You know, some of the anime or some of the smaller scale RPGs, I think, okay, there's not a lot riding on it. This is mostly just for fun. I'm having a lot of good times. And, you know, normally I don't go like mainstream unless I'm talking Final Fantasy or Persona or Tales, you know, any of the bigger franchises. And in most cases, I tend not to come across as a curmudgeon, though I do most of the time when I'm dealing with stuff on Discord or Reddit. But, there are those times, and this is one of those times, where the prospect of doing something, even in a small way, kind of scares me a little. Mostly because I do not know where to start. Or I'm afraid that something like, say, Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy XIII, things that I have notoriously railed on and have said, yeah, I'm going to get to those, and I'm going to bitch about them eventually. Yes, I am going to get to those. And even comparative-wise, this one won't be such a vehement denial of a franchise. But I am wholly opposed to Kingdom Hearts. Not because I hate it. And I do want to preface that. I don't hate Kingdom Hearts. Despite what some of my mods might tell me, some of my friends who know me, some of the people I argue with online, I don't hate Kingdom Hearts. And in fact, in some cases, I like it. The problem is, I don't know of any franchise ever, anywhere, that has such good points and such terrible bad points. So this is an utter crazy thing for me to deal with, because how do I even respond to this? Because I'm not wholly against Kingdom Hearts as a concept. In fact, I like it as a concept. The things that I don't like about it are the things that I absolutely hate about it. So, in lieu of fairness, when I'm going to talk about Kingdom Hearts, I am going to start at the absolute nicest point. I'm going to start at the very beginning. Because if I ever end up doing this podcast for years and years and years and years and years and years, I might get to every game in the franchise. But I know I'm going to get to 1. I know I'm going to get to 2. I might get to Birth by Sleep in 3. But I have so little understanding of this. And I don't think I'm alone. I'm reminded of some jokes that Jim Sterling and Barry Kramer did. I know Jim Sterling made a video about the lore of Kingdom Hearts when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, and he'd spent like 3 to 5 minutes kind of talking about things, and his words were, "Can I just play in Simba Land? Can I go play in Lion King Land? I like that." And then you'd have Barry Kramer curl up inside a ball and just cry. I'm up there with them. But I say that, again, I started this podcast. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be absolutely fair, and I'm going to try, even in a game I don't like, to play devil's advocate. And yeah, there are some things about, say, Persona 5, my favorite game ever, Final Fantasy VI. When I get to that, there are going to be things about Final Fantasy VI I did not like. So I'm going to try to be fair. And when we get to the positives and negatives part, hopefully people can understand that I don't hate Kingdom Hearts. I will put my stamp on it and say I don't like playing it, but not because of all of the things it does, just some of the stupid things it does. Kingdom Hearts is a good franchise and a good game and a successful game, as I will discuss. It is just a very stupid franchise with stupid things in it. And those stupid things are so stupidly ridiculous that I can't help but laugh. With that out of the way, we'll get to all of those. But for now, we'll do what we do. We'll start with the beginning. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X came out. It was a massive success. You're riding high off of 7, 8, 9, better, 10, great. 10-2 hadn't come out yet. Spirits Within may or may not have come out before then and doomed the franchise, but this is still long before Advent Children, long before Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy X-2, 2001, 2002. Apparently, the story goes that executives just met in an elevator, and then they just threw a business card and they said, okay, we have this idea. Let's bring Final Fantasy and Disney together. Do I believe that actually happened? That would be a very funny coincidence. Would be pretty fucking funny. That'd be like saying Smash Brothers came about because somebody met in a car wreck, and it was Sakurai and the guys at, you know, every other Nintendo property just got into the same car wreck, and then they said, nope, we're gonna make Smash Brothers. I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's the prevailing joke theory. Again, Final Fantasy and Disney. Sounds, even back then, that it wouldn't work. How wrong we were. Because funny enough, the best parts about this game are the things it was built upon. The idea of Tetsuya Nomura's Final Fantasy VII through Final Fantasy X characters inhabiting, well, mostly 7, 8, and 9, let's be fair. 7, 8, some of 9, but mostly 10. Mostly because he was the one who's created most of those characters, let's be fair. He created most of the guys in 7, 8, and 10, which is why most of the time that's who he uses. Though he has softened on that, used others, to be fair. But this was Nomura's first attempt in the director's chair, and it shows. But it still ended up being a melding of those Final Fantasy ephemera, all of the spells, some of the ideas, some of the sound effects, a lot of the characters, to the most part, lived up to the hype. Some didn't, as I'll get into. But the idea of me being a Final Fantasy fan, and you know, like, I was not really into Disney anymore. I was around 15, 16 years old when this came out, so my interest in Disney had waned, and I mostly just watched Pixar movies. So why haven't I done Kingdom Hearts 3 yet? I don't know. But still, I'll get to that whenever I get to it. It's complicated. But again, I watched Aladdin, I watched Lion King, I watched Hercules. Like, growing up in the 90s, those movies were my thing. I didn't watch all of them. You know, things like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and others, you know, passed by. But I was a big Aladdin fan, you know, Lion King. So the idea that, oh God, I could experience Disney in a different way in a video game. Because I had played some Disney tie-ins before, like Castle of Illusion, I think was the one for SNES. And then, I might be wrong, but it was like Mickey's Magical Quest or something. It was for the SNES. And then a couple of the Aladdin games. I've played the Lion King game, so I have some knowledge. You know, I've watched a lot of the cartoons. Like, I'm still into Disney. And of course, I had Pixar. So Disney wasn't something I wasn't against. I think Disney's one of those things everybody knows. Or at least everybody's at least grown up with Disney to an extent. Goof Troop, a Goofy movie. Like, you're telling me I get to play as Goofy? That's great. So, I don't know, Sora. You're kind of dumb. You know, having him just, you know, talk. No, I can't do a Donald Duck voice. I wish I could. Anyway, we'll get to that. But still, the basic premise is there. You've got Final Fantasy characters inhabiting Disney worlds and original creations. I didn't even know at the time that Yoko Shimomura was the composer, but I like it now, especially going back and watching it. So, I don't know if they knew this would be as successful as it did, but holy crap did it explode. And therein kind of lies the problem. It exploded way too much. And to be fair, a lot of the issues I have with Kingdom Hearts have to do with later Kingdom Hearts games. So, I will do my best to only focus on what is happening in Kingdom Hearts 1. So hopefully that provides a basis for that. But we'll start with characters and plot. So let's see if we can kind of work our way around the plot as best we can, because for Kingdom Hearts, the first game's plot is not all that complicated. So, on an island in the middle of nowhere, we have Sora, voiced by Haley Joel Osment, from Sixth Sense and later on stuff like Kevin Smith movies and such. He's with Riku, voiced by David Gallagher, and Kairi, voiced by Hannah Panettiere. They're just these kids on this island. Waka, Tidus, and Selphie are also there because Final Fantasy. So younger versions of those characters are there, and they act as like tutorials. And Sora and Riku have this sort of like friendly rivalry going on. They both like Kairi, but it's kind of obvious that Sora's in the lead there, you know. So you kind of figure they'll end up together and whatnot. Whatever happens, I think it was like a storm or a violent storm, and Sora, Riku, and Kairi get separated into different lands, and we start our crazy little adventure. But we get a tutorial mission to learn the battle mechanics, because it's a hack and slash game, and most of us Final Fantasy people were used to turn-based combat. And I'll get into the combat later, but the tutorial, you get a choice of attack, magic, and defense. Last time I played both 1 and 2, I went for defense, mostly because I suck at hack and slash, and specifically Kingdom Hearts version of it. So I was able to get a lot more passives and a lot more physical health and, you know, stay alive longer. Most of the time, really, what that affects is what time frame you get your skills in and when. So if you're an attack-oriented guy, you get a lot more of the combo moves first. If you get a lot of magic, you buff your stuff. Mostly, you just need your base spells, and obviously you need a cure spell or a shit ton of potions. But that's beside the point for right now. But Sora makes his way to Traverse Town, and unbeknownst to him, we have lots of crazy stuff happening, both on the Disney side and the Final Fantasy side of things, because Sora is his own creation. So when I talk about Kingdom Hearts, I have to talk about all three phases, because you have all three. They intersperse, but they're all distinct things. But Sora kind of walks himself around, and then he ends up, I forget if he runs into Donald and Goofy first, or if he actually runs into the Final Fantasy crew first. I will say he runs into the Final Fantasy crew first, because he runs into someone named Leon, who is apparently Squall, but he won't call himself Squall. But we know it's Squall, because you can't confuse that style, that hair, that gunblade, and that disposition anywhere else. In the first game, he's voiced by David Boreanaz. Second game, Doug Erholtz. I'm more familiar with the second game, to be honest, because that's a fairly recent version, but I think both do pretty well. Leon picks a fight with Sora, kind of as a tutorial thing. Sometimes you get your ass kicked, because Squall's no joke, but he ends up showing Sora around and telling him that Traverse Town is home to these heartless things, and he's got to be careful, and, you know, other stuff is going on, but sort of a resistance is piling on. They're not, like, Final Fantasy's mostly holding the fort of Traverse Town as their own separate entity, because a lot of islands have been kind of taken over by these heartless things. And, you know, the Final Fantasy crew's kind of banding together in this home base. So you get to meet Aerith, voiced by Mandy Moore, of all people, Yuffie, Christy Carlson Romano, Sid, Highwind from 7, Chris Edgerly, and several other Final Fantasy characters show up here and there. I think a lot more show up in the second game, as kind of a cool ass beat 'em up sequence in the middle of the game, but that's more to do with, say, Final Fantasy Advent Children coming out. But you've got, your main 4 or 5 people coming, and so they go about their merry way, and they help Sora along, and they say, hey, we're good guys, just watch out for the Heartless. We're trying to hold serve here because something crazy is going on, and we don't know what's going on. While that is going on, Sora and Donald and Goofy, voiced by Disney actors, and I will go over into the voice acting. I won't go over every voice actor, but suffice it to say, when you hear that it's the same voice acting crew from all of the older games and older movies, older shows, it's just, oh, it's so good. You got Donald Duck, voiced by Tony Anselmo. Still can't do the Donald Duck voice. I've never figured out how to do it, so I'm never gonna do it. And then Bill Farmer is Goofy, and Donald is the super mage of the party, black mage mostly, but he'll cure your ass every once in a while if he remembers to do it. And then Goofy's there as the attacker / defender and attacks with a shield for reasons. But now I'm reminded of Goofy flopping on the ground because his walk is so hilarious because his ears are flopping everywhere and his feet are kind of turned out like a crab or something. So he waddles around with weird bow-leggedness, and it's just the weirdest freaking walk, but it somehow works for him, because he's a dog sort of adjacent thing. Have we ever figured out what Goofy is? I'm gonna say he's a dog person, but he's not quite a dog person. I've never figured that out. But yes, eventually Sora and Goofy and Donald all join up together by the power of friendship, because that's how these things always work. Sora is looking for Riku and Kairi. Donald and Goofy are on the search for King Mickey. And yeah, King Mickey. So Mickey Mouse is in this game somewhere. I won't say where, because that would be spoilers. Boo. But he's there, because you would not have a Disney game without Mickey. You just wouldn't. But they're looking for Mickey at the behest of Minnie and Daisy, because I think they show up more in the second game, but they might have also been in the first. Forgive me, it's been a year or so. But I know that specifically you go to Mickey's castle in the second game, for sure. But they're on loan to try and figure out where the hell King Mickey is. It's a good old MacGuffin hunt, but really what they're in here for, they find out that somebody is screwing around with the timeline. Lots of Disney villains, the big bad that we'll get to in a minute. A whole lot of shit's going down, and the Heartless have invaded Disney worlds. And therein lies the key. You've had your Final Fantasy fun, but now we're going to get into the meat of the game. You have several crazy situations going around in the Disney worlds. Alice in Wonderland, Aladdin, Neverland, the Tarzan jungle, Monstro from Pinocchio, Peter Pan, Neverland, as I mentioned, but the Olympus Coliseum, so many of them. So many awesome places. Do I think they could have showed off some others? Yes. But again, that's what other games are for. So they definitely give you a good slew of old school stuff and new school stuff. And they even throw in some surprises like Nightmare Before Christmas. And everybody has their favorites. Personally, I'm a big fan of... Oh God, what was my favorite? Well, Agrabah. Not from a gameplay perspective. I'd say gameplay-wise, I think the Coliseum is usually regarded as mostly everyone's favorite. But Agrabah, because one of my favorite cartoons way back was Aladdin. So I am eminently just intimately familiar, is a proper term, with all of the ephemera. The way it looks, the Cave of Wonders, Magic Carpets, Abu, Aladdin, Jasmine, characters, everybody. Not Robin Williams, unfortunately, but they got Dan Castellaneta, so yeah, I'm on board with this. You got Gilbert Gottfried, rest in peace. You've got the guy who did Jafar. I think the Sultan shows up and is the same guy. all of the people from 10 years ago floods into my head, and I'm just like, it's so good. So obviously I'm going to have a fondness for that. If you have higher name voice like bigger name actors, like if you can't get, say, Robin Williams, they do their best to get like voice alikes. I see this more in Kingdom Hearts 2 when like you can't get Eddie Murphy or Johnny Depp, so they get some other people, including Tidus's voice actor, James Arnold Taylor, is actually Jack Sparrow in the second game. I don't know if he's the voice actor in the new version, but I don't think he's that bad. But anyway, in most cases, the Disney characters you know and love are the same. Same actors, same style, same look, same everything. Outside of some of the higher named actors, which makes sense. If you can't afford them or don't want to afford them, that's totally understandable. Would I have liked to hear Robin Williams go all Robin Williams? Yes, but I'm not going to complain because Castellaneta was still part of my childhood as the other genie. So it's like, that's fine. And then I get to experience condensed versions of these stories. So even if I may not have been familiar with Nightmare Before Christmas before this game, this kind of gave me that that intro into a lot of Disney properties that I didn't know. So the Final Fantasy fan in me got to experience a lot of the Disney stuff that I wasn't a fan of anymore. And in most cases, it succeeds. The worst that happens is, like, they talk about the Heartless taking over, and we need to find a keyhole, and, we fight some of the bosses, but you get to fight people like Ursula. You get to fight people like Captain Hook. Clayton from Tarzan. I don't think anybody remembers him, but whatever. In other instances, maybe it's just random Heartless, big bad Heartless. Stupid ambulance outside, sorry. But yes, the ephemera of Kingdom Hearts melds the Final Fantasy stuff and the gameplay well enough with all the Disney ephemera that I'm just floored by it. And that's even before you get to Maleficent. For God's sake, Maleficent is great. And it's just a sight to see. And I obviously don't think it's the same actress. But they do the best that they can. I mean, it could be. It would have been 55 years or so since somebody did it. I have not seen the original Sleeping Beauty. I'm sure they got somebody way earlier. But the person they got, Suzanne Blakesley, holy shit. Having never seen Sleeping Beauty, have never felt it, Maleficent owns the screen. And that's something you can say about those Disney characters and those Disney villains in particular. They own their screen time. And they make you feel like they are a threat. And then that's even before you face them. Because I will say this about Kingdom Hearts. This game can be difficult. Even, it might be on the easy side based on action game standards, but then when they want to, the game will kick the shit out of you. And it did. So it made me realize how intense these characters are, and it helps to have such a cast. And we haven't even gotten to the big bad yet. Because once we find Maleficent kind of fucking around some of the Disney worlds, we find it's not even her. We find the evil known as Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, voiced by Billy Zane from Titanic, and I think it was in a Tale of the Crypt movie, some other roles and stuff. But he's a guy that back in the 90s, I forget, was he the Shadow? I want to say he was the Shadow. That mid-90s comic book movie. I want to say he was the main guy in that. I could be wrong. But I know him specifically from Titanic. But holy crap. Same idea as Maleficent. He owns the screen. And for a kid's type of game, you start feeling something about what's going on and what they're trying to do. And while they don't really explain it that well, the basic premise is Maleficent and Ansem have kind of not teamed up, but kind of working in the same time frame and same goals. They both want to rule the darkness and whatever. They use the Heartless to do the thing. Ansem more so than Maleficent, but still. evil people do evil things. So other villains in the other worlds kind of do their things. They get manipulated by Maleficent or Ansem to do the thing they want to. And it's Sora and Goofy and Donald's job to close off the worlds and make them safe and do all the good stuff. So you end up fighting all the bosses again. You fight, figuring it out all this time. Eventually, you reach Hollow Bastion. The best part of the game. Best song in the game, by far. It's not even close. You near the end of it, you get to the end of the world, you return to Destiny Islands, and then Ansem appears and all this stuff, and you start finding out that Riku is getting bowled over by the darkness while Sora is the light. It's the Ray and God damn it, I don't even remember Adam Driver's character, and I don't even remember his fucking character. It's the light and dark thing from fucking Star Wars. Simple, but it works. Even though they're played by 12-year-old kids, the light and darkness in them and whatever. It gets more complicated in the second and third game. It's worse, but again, I'm just throwing that out there. Basic premise is Ansem and Maleficent are stealing the world's princesses. The princess line keeps expanding, never stops expanding, but they're the Princess of Hearts in this game. Just go with it. Kairi is apparently a princess of heart, and if you destroy all of the hearts and you get rid of the light and you get all the darkness in the world, and it becomes the end of the world. And then Ansem supposedly becomes the evil big bad at the end, and I'm the big bad guy. Revel in my 7 or 8 final forms, you know. So Sora has to do that. They succeed. And it all goes their merry way. But they throw in a little teaser. They find out that Mickey's still around. They find a letter from Pluto, and they chase him down, and they find the letter, and they get the events of Chain of Memories in Kingdom Hearts 2. And I'm going to leave those for their own video. But suffice it to say, it's a basic, bare-bones, stupid story. But you're in a Disney world with Final Fantasy characters and some good Kingdom Hearts characters. So it's a good mix of weird stuff done well. Just like the battle system. The battle system isn't anything to write home about, but it has its own unique feel. Why I like this versus, say, Final Fantasy 15 or something is they're not trying to take a turn-based system and cram it into another Final Fantasy game. And this is its own thing. This is its own Final Fantasy adjacent sort of experience. It's got all the spell names and all the weird quirkiness, but it's its own hack and slash. So I can probably blame this and Secret of Mana for why we have action-based Final Fantasy games now. But again, it's its own thing. Kingdom Hearts is its own style of game. It's very free-flowing. As I said before, Sora can focus on attack, defense, or magic, however he chooses. Donald is your magic user. He's going to save your ass and heal you somewhat. He's pretty good at not running out of MP, though. As opposed to other AI in other games, they don't run out of MP as fast as you think they would, or at least they have a good basis for, oh, okay, you have enough elixirs and other things so that you're not completely shut out. I never felt in Kingdom Hearts that I was solely reliant on keeping my party members healthy under duress. I think that was something I had issues with in .hack more than this. It still happens. You can't trust your AI to do shit. But Goofy and Donald hold their own enough. If you're smart enough to handle the battles, Sora's usually good enough to basically rip the shit out of dudes. So, one of the cool things about Kingdom Hearts' idea is environmental QTEs. Not so much the environments, but mostly just little prompts. This is before QTEs just became everywhere and every cutscene became everything. QTEs in the scope of a fight. I think the one I can recall offhand would be beat up a fat guy from behind, do like a small combo, then press triangle to hit him into the air and then knock him down and break him up into little pieces, that sort of thing. It's more fluid in Kingdom Hearts 2. because they add way more things to do, like finishing moves. You got summons here and there, like you could summon Genie, you can summon Jack Skellington, or you can have Jack Skellington in Halloween Town, if I remember correctly. So you get special summons from different worlds. You get different Keyblades from different worlds that have different buffs, whether they're better magic or better defense, better attack. So all cool different things. In some cases, Sora, Goofy, and Donald even look different. Specifically, Halloween Town, they get to look like demonic or Halloween-ish character versions of themselves. So a lot of care was taken into at least giving them the feel of their own little worlds and doing their own things, which was cool. And in battles, doing little things like that helps, because you may want to be a magic-based caster. You may want to be just a straight attack dude. But you can kind of play your own way, and the game won't really punish you unless you're on a high difficulty or you're fighting one of the bosses. That being said, the bosses can be a little hard. And I do think that Kingdom Hearts 2 refined the formula, sure, but I never felt like Kingdom Hearts 1 was bad at it. I think the combat was not so bad. It was traversing the world, because I don't think they got 3D platforming down, and 3D platforming has always been kind of wonky, and this was before everything became contextual button presses to climb, and invisible walls saved you from falling. I remember specifically hating Kingdom Hearts 1 when I played it, because I had a bad capture card at the time, and there was always a delay, so I always felt the game was at fault rather than my technical stuff. Had I played it with a better card at the time, or I play it on the TV where there's no delay, I'm sure it would be serviceable. But again, I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is a better thing across the board. What I will say Kingdom Hearts 1 does better is dungeon design, because I felt that Kingdom Hearts 2 relies too much on small spaces and arena bits and spaces. There are still some longer areas, say like Beast's Castle and the long hallways and stuff, but it never felt like they were expansive worlds. They were like maybe 4 to 5 different areas, and you repeat and you come back and you do a thing. There's nothing in it like the jungle thing where you're swirling around the jungle like the Tarzan movie. There's nothing like going into the Cave of Wonders and going into the Cave of Wonders and actually exploring it. Because I think in the second game you do it, but it's mostly stage by stage. It's not as expansive. The one I'm not very fond of was not... I mean, I hated Atlantica, but I'll get to that. But Monstro felt like a maze. I didn't like it, but I at least liked the attempt. I liked that Neverland, you could fly around London and the pirate ship. And even Atlantica, I appreciate the attempt, note the attempt, to make you swim. It was not implemented very well at all, but I at least appreciate the attempt to make Atlantica feel like an underground, an underworld, under the sea kind of vibe, as opposed to 2, where it turned into a rhythm game because we hated it so much. What I did not appreciate, mostly from a design perspective and from a mandatory perspective, was the Gummy ship levels. I'm not a shmup guy. I've played a couple in my life. Okay, cool. It's not like the hardest shmup in the world, because it's not like a one-shot and you're dead kind of thing. It's more reminiscent of like that Speed Square game in Final Fantasy VII where there's like no stakes at all. But I don't like the fact it's mandatory. I hate the fact that you have to clear that thing once to get through it. I just want to go back to playing as Sora. I can make do with the combat because I'm so used to it. Now you're trying to make me do the Gummy ship again. I don't want it to be mandatory. You have all these little tinkering and customization things, but it still doesn't change the fact that if I fail, I have to do the whole fucking thing over again just to get to the next world. Same thing with 2, and I'm betting it's the same with 3. I don't like it when other types of gameplay are mandatory. It's like a forced stealth section in a Zelda game. Zelda's not based in stealth. Final Fantasy's not based in stealth. Final Fantasy's not supposed to be a Resident Evil game. Stop doing that. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Or if you're going to do it, add a skip function if I fail. There's no harm in saying, hey, it sounds like you're fucking up. Do you want to just skip it? It's an easy concession to make. I know that would make the hardcore bitches on Twitter and GameFAQs and whatever bitch up a story was like, no, you're not a real gamer. Do it that way. No. If I don't know how to do something, don't force me to play a thing I'm not good at just to suffice because you thought it was a good idea. It could be the best shmup in the world. Doesn't matter. The fact that I have to do it when I have absolutely proven I don't understand how to do it, this isn't like grinding in a video game. Grinding out levels or grinding out a strategy. That's a lot easier for me to comprehend because I've had 10 to 15 years of playing RPGs to fall back on. That's why stuff like Castlevania sometimes is a bit of a challenge for me because I don't have that 50 million extra HP or a lot more damage potential because I leveled up for an extra hour. Anything being mandatory, if it's a secondary feature of a game, that's like saying that the CPR section in Final Fantasy VII should be mandatory, but you're stretching it out for 5 minutes. It shouldn't. You know? You shouldn't have a secondary mechanic just because it's that way. That's probably why stuff like Battletoads is so goddamn hard, because they give you 10 different types of fucking super difficult challenges that are different. The main gameplay loop is a beat 'em up, but then you're riding the fucking bikes over these freaking cinder blocks. You're riding the fucking wheel or the fucking hoverboard thing in that goddamn maze, up and around and whirl around near the end. They're fucking crazy. But that's mandatory. Again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate because I think people like the Gummy ship as a concept, and I do. It's a cool idea. But gating off the rest of the game if I can't finish a thing shouldn't feel like a punishment. Especially if I'm replaying the game and I feel I don't really like this section. So if I don't like a thing, I wasn't expecting this part of the game because I was expecting the hack and slash stuff. I've been conditioned to play the hack and slash. So again, that's probably where the problem is. Maybe it's because I don't want to deal with the customization shit. If you're a customizer, if you're a shmup enthusiast, it might be baby's first Gummy ship for you. That's perfectly fine. But for a total RPG guy like I was, going and playing a shmup was not a thing. But that is what it is. We'll switch gears and then talk about something I did enjoy. And that's Yoko Shimomura. Now, Kingdom Hearts, I don't have as much a fondness for the songs as, say, Legend of Mana or Super Mario RPG, but I still loved it. Because there are a lot of cool things. I've gone over a lot of the designs and a lot of the retelling of stories. I'll go over the telling of stories in Disney again. But as far as music goes, especially coming off of Legend of Mana since I replayed it last year or earlier this year, I was able to hear a lot of that style of whimsy, especially in the battle themes. Legend of Mana had epic battle themes. This game followed suit, because it was like 1 or 2 years after that, so it came right off the heels of Mana. And if you haven't played Legend of Mana, listen to the music, if nothing else. But that's not all of it. They redo a lot of the Disney themes, or even just the iconic stuff. You get to listen in to Under the Sea. You get a Arabian Nights kind of facsimile, not the Aladdin theme, but you have a facsimile of an Arabian theme. You've got Hollow Bastion, which I maintain is the best thing about that goddamn game. That song drives you to want to complete it because it's near the end of the game. It's not the final dungeon, but it's certainly that imposing near end that you know shit's getting real. The opening theme that's been redone and remixed, it's so simple, but it works. So there's a lot of cool songs to like. I like the fact that the songs subtly change themselves when you get into a fight. So it's reminiscent of how Yasunori Mitsuda did Xenoblade 2, where he'd have a night theme and a day theme for a lot of areas, if not all of them. It was fairly reminiscent of that, done way before then, which is even cool. It's cool to think about that Shimomura had that in mind. Just change the tone of the normal themes into a battle setup. And of course, Simple and Clean by Hikaru Utada. Listening to the lyrics, they don't make a whole lot of sense in the scope of Kingdom Hearts. It's more about falling in love, like teenage love or adult love, and talking about your father for some reason. I don't get it. But you see that in the opening and ending themes, you don't really give a shit. I mean, it's got 20-some million views on YouTube on some videos for a reason. It's still a very good theme. Again, not every song has to absolutely gear itself to the theme of the game. I wish they did. They don't always have to. I mean, not everything does. But it's an iconic theme that everybody knows and everybody thinks, and I think her entire career, as far as I can remember, has hinged on that song existing. So I'm not going to say no. So again, the music is awesome. It's great. As I said before, this game is good at retelling Disney stuff. They do a very basic job of retelling stories. Usually, if it's like the first Aladdin game, it would be like facets of the first Aladdin movie. It'd be the first Aladdin movie. In the second game, when they go back to Agrabah, they kind of go the Return of Jafar, with Iago kind of being a party member, but not really. You know, the subtle differences of that. You have little instances of the story, but you interweave Sora, Donald, and Goofy in there while they're trying to look for Riku, and it's kind of nice. Again, as I've said, having them change their outlook, their outward appearance to fit some of the themes was nice. Making them become mermaids or flounders or little crabs or whatever they look like in Atlantica. Demonic versions of themselves in Halloween Town. Freaking Donald is fucking frightening. You know, that sort of thing is cool. It's extra little touches they didn't have to do, but it adds so much to the aesthetic that they were going for. As I said, different Keyblades with different stats that fit the theme of the game, the spot that you just survived in. All these different side quests you don't have to do. I personally didn't do all of them, but they're there. So if you want to be a completionist, you can. If you want to do all the Colosseum stuff, you can. Which is great, because I haven't even mentioned the other Final Fantasy characters yet. Oh my god, I'm dumb. But anyway, far be it for me to just not mention them. So, during the Colosseum section, you have a chance of fighting Leon, Yuffie, not Aerith, because she's a nice, prim, proper lady, which is not how she was. It's totally wrong. Aerith is a snarky, lovable lady with snark. Kingdom Hearts is wrong, and I will die on that hill. It's not Mandy Moore's fault. It's not Mena Suvari's fault. It's how the game's presented her. It's not how Advent Children presented her. In the original game, she's a fucking snark, and I love it. She's a lot more cunning than people give her credit for. But anyway, in this game, she's just there. She's a nice flower lady. She's the perfect, noble girl. Nothing going wrong. So Yuffie and Leon fight you in the Colosseum a little bit. You got Cloud, voiced by Steve Burton, who was in Advent Children and a lot of the other stuff. He shows up looking for Sephiroth. He doesn't know where Sephiroth is. He gets like an emo outfit with the sword taped up like Nicholas D. Wolfwood and Trigun or whatever. Trigun's great. I'll do that review some other day. But he's all emo and shit because that's what Cloud used to be. Not really. Again, Cloud's sort of emo, but he's got a sense of humor sometimes. Anyway, not in this game he don't. But he's looking for Sephiroth. He's looking for Zack or Aerith or whatever. And I think they actually, if I remember right, I think Cloud actually meets Aerith in 2. He doesn't actually meet him in the first game, but they meet up in the second game. Speaking of meeting up, They meet Sephiroth in the second game as well. But here, no such luck. You fight Cloud, if you make it far enough. You fight Yuffie and you fight Squall if you fight hard enough. You fight some Disney villains. You fight fucking Hades, dude. How did I not even mention Hades this whole goddamn time? I'm stupid. Speaking of Maleficent, Hades, James Woods, fucking awesome. Totally great. Fighting Hades is great. Can he take the heat? It's so good. But then all of that pales in comparison. And you know what I'm going to talk about. If you make it to the end of the Colosseum, you fight the guy, Sephiroth himself. And I'm sure it's common knowledge, but I'll say it anyway. In the first game, God forbid, I don't know how this happened, Lance Bass from NSYNC. I don't know. I've heard it said that he still refers to himself as OG Sephiroth on his Twitter profile. I have no fucking idea. If he does, that's awesome. Because you wouldn't know it. You would not fucking know it. It's just like you wouldn't know Justin Timberlake was a goddamn good actor when you get down to it. I remember Timberlake was in, what was that movie about the time, like the time dilation where you have a certain amount of time and you're trying not to die? It was a cool concept. I never saw it. But anyway, the guys from NSYNC go off and do crazy things like become the original Sephiroth voice actor. How the fuck was I supposed to know? Sephiroth's fucking difficult. He's got 20 fucking health bars and his damage output is insane. And I think I beat him like once. It's like fighting Mike Tyson, only in Kingdom Hearts. But God forbid, if you want to do that, you can. If you want to challenge yourself, you can. There are super hard bosses in Kingdom Hearts. God forbid, this game can be challenging. That's what proud mode or critical mode are for. I am a wimpy, whiny boy. I don't like the hard stuff. I fought him once. I might have beaten him once. When I saw him do the insta-kill move and take my health down to 1 HP regardless of what the fuck I want to do, I'm like, nope. It was cool seeing you. I don't want to. But Last Bands did a good job. Do I think he's as good as George Newbern from Advent Children, the new Sephiroth in the remake stuff? No. But as far as Lance Bass as Sephiroth, it's better than you think it would be. But again, that's just me. Anyway, while I'm at it, because again, that's the voice actors thing. I'll talk about the positives. The voice actors. Lance Bass's Sephiroth was good. You got some of the people who did the Advent Children stuff for Final Fantasy. And then, of course, you have to change it around. Like, Yuffie changes her voice actor every goddamn game, so I can never figure it out. But as many as the original Disney actors or as many of the people they had on staff forever was still exciting. Hearing people like Gilbert Gottfried still be there. Hearing Jim Cummings, mostly in 2, but I'm sure Jim Cummings was other, like he was Winnie the Pooh, so he was in the first game. Hearing Jim Cummings again was great. Hearing the voice actress for Maleficent and learning about Maleficent the first time is great. Hearing Bill Farmer as Goofy. Even the Kingdom Hearts people were fine. The Final Fantasy people, for most instances, I have no problem with the voice acting. What I have a problem with is what they're meant to say. So if you want to know why I hate Kingdom Hearts, it's the writing. God damn it, it is the writing. Hearts and darkness and hearts and darkness and hearts and darkness. I don't fucking know. I'm sure there's a meme somewhere of how many times they've said hearts and darkness. It's every goddamn sentence. I swear it is every goddamn sentence. I'm sure it's not. But they can't come up with another word for darkness. They can't come up with another word for light. They can't come up with another word for hearts. It's got to be the same goddamn... Well, in the second game, they had nobodies. So, there you go. You got Organization 13. You got nobodies. That's great. It's fine. Whatever. It's Final Fantasy for 5-year-olds. The writing is fucking bad because you can't find words to say. I get it. It's meant for kids. It's meant for little kids. Not that I would imagine little kids would be able to play Kingdom Hearts given how hard some of the boss battles are. But, 5 to 7 years old, 10 years old, sure. maybe I'm being facetious. Maybe I'm being too hard on it. I'm 36, going on 37. I get it. But even back then, I hated it. Even playing Kingdom Hearts 2, I realized it. It's only now, 20 goddamn years later, that it's become a meme. I get it. But it's still bad. I don't care how many times I've played it. It's terrible. So nobody can defend it. And I defend these voice actors for a living. It's not the voice actors' fault. At all. Because a lot of those voice actors, specifically the second game, when you start getting anime voice actors and video game voice actors, some of which I've talked about on this channel for a year now, it's not the actor's fault. It's the fact that, for whatever reason, 2 or 3 goddamn words are all they can say. Maybe it was a mandate from Disney that they don't want to get too graphic or too dumb or whatever. It's the Kingdom Hearts stuff that ruins this game so much. Because not even the normal Disney stuff. The Disney stuff is fine because they get to talk about the concepts of their worlds and what they're doing. You get to see the dude with, in Halloween Town, the doctor with his head half, like, his brain falling out of his head. You can't tell me you can't have better words than Hearts and Darkness. Like, god damn it. It's... Ugh. But let's get back to the good stuff. Again, going to all the Disney worlds, seeing all the cool stuff with Yoko Shimomura's soundtrack. It's so nice. The amount of stuff she gets to do, it's great. The combat is amazing. It's really wonky and weird and silly, but it works. It's probably baby's first action RPG, but that's fine, because it was my first action RPG, because most games at the time are turn-based. Other than, say, Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore or whatever like that. But still, as a first time, it's got its own quirks, but it's fine. The world designs, the world maps could use a little bit of work. Like Atlantica, the way you get around swimming and whatnot doesn't always work. The platforming is kind of wonky in sections. I remember, I think it was the first game where you have Oogie Boogie as a house, and you have to jump on all these little things and sword swipe and beat up all these little orbs of darkness and shit so you can, like, blow up his house or something. And admittedly, I had a delayed capture card. Maybe you didn't have near as much trouble platforming as I did, but it was kind of weird. And then you have the Monstro Maze, where you don't know which way you're going. Again, cool concepts in theory, but it's like the Gummy ship. They shouldn't be mandatory. Or at least you should have different ways of getting around these places. The last thing is kind of a quibble, but I'll preface it by saying, you know how most Final Fantasy bosses have at most 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 final boss forms? Ansem has like 8. And I don't know why. It's a spectacle unto itself that doesn't have to happen. And sure, you could sit there and go, well, Persona 3 had 13 or 14. What the fuck's the problem? The ones in Persona 3 didn't last 2 to 5 minutes each turn. They at most lasted a turn or 2. And you got rid of the one and you move around. The full fucking health bar is there. Sure, not as dangerous as the full final boss forms, but come on, dude. You don't need 7 goddamn forms. It just becomes an exhausting level of excess that you just don't need. And I'm pretty sure they kept up with it in 2. I don't think Xehanort had nearly as bad until you realized what his final form actually was. And then it was like, oh god, I finally made it to that form. I'm fucking done. That sort of thing. So Ansem was the same way. You still beat him. He's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, it can be, but you don't need that many final forms. Stick with 2 or 3, or have, say, an underling or 2. The fact that it was all Ansem all the time, and he just had an endless array of forms, that's what I did not like. But again, at the end of the day, did I enjoy Kingdom Hearts? Yes. I like Kingdom Hearts for a lot of the things it did. The voice acting was good. The soundtrack. Going and visiting Disney was great. You want to know what I don't like about Kingdom Hearts? The Kingdom Hearts stuff in it. But even in the first game, the Kingdom Hearts in it is relatively muted. Is it my favorite franchise? No. Is it my least favorite franchise? No. There are some franchises I won't touch for many different reasons. I can at least play a Kingdom Hearts game and get through it. Even if I suffer through it, I can still get through it. I just don't think it's for me. That being said, there are still things that you can enjoy and express, as I have. I hope that, if nothing else, Kingdom Hearts as a whole, a thing, is great. It's got some wonky designs, but it's still a great experience. I remember somebody online the other day talked about being an emotional experience. Mostly the Disney stuff, mostly the Final Fantasy stuff, and they veered away from the Final Fantasy character stuff and the fan serviciness, and I love that. I don't want that to go away. That's the stuff I enjoyed. When it does the Final Fantasy crossover cameos, when it does the Disney cameos and lets me visit Disney worlds, I love that. The combat in and of itself is not too bad. Getting to play as other characters, or at least having them in my party, having Jack Skellington or Mulan or Aladdin in my party is nuts. I love that. So it sucks that there's so much stuff about Kingdom Hearts that it's like such a minor part, but casts such a large shadow over it. And we haven't even gone over just the plot itself, because I'm going to save that for next time. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a great experience, and if nothing else, if nobody's ever played a Kingdom Hearts game, it's a good game. Veering on great on some occasions, depending on your fascination with Disney and Final Fantasy. The Kingdom Hearts stuff, I want to put in a corner and just leave alone. But I can shut my brain off and leave it there. But that'll do it for me today. Next time, we do Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate. Next game we do is Silent Hill 2, and we'll talk about the remaster as well. At least bit by bit, here and there. And then to finish off Halloween, we've got Ghost Stories dub. I'm actually working my way through the Ghost Stories dub right now to prep for that, so I don't have to worry about it. As far as other content coming up, the first thing we're going to do coming off of Halloween and into November is something I've been putting off for a while now. What I'm going to do is list a lot of different Super Nintendo games that I don't think I could talk about at length for a full episode. So stuff like Super Metroid, maybe a Kirby game, some old school standbys like Turtles in Time, Rock and Roll Racing, you name it, stuff like that. I'm going to scour like a big giant list of SNES games and things that I might have played or might have remembered, and kind of just spend the next couple of weeks like watching footage, because I don't really have as much access to those games as I used to, or they don't exist in ephemera anymore, but I still have memories of them. Those are going to be like 3 to 5 minutes of just me gabbing about different games and then going to the next one, going to the next one, going to the next one. So I'm going to call it the SNES grab bag. After that, we get back into anime with Spice and Wolf. And I'm really glad that Spice and Wolf is getting another adaptation. It was one of my favorite shows 10 to 15 years ago, with some of the best cast chemistry you'll ever see in an anime. One of the best romances you'll ever see, and such an awesome concept to balance the romance stuff and the quarreling and the goofiness of it with economics from a merchant's perspective. It's really fascinating how Spice and Wolf managed to carve out its own niche at the time that I don't think any show has since. I think Ascendance of a Bookworm comes close, but even then it just feels like it's nowhere close to how Spice and Wolf was. And it shows a lot in how its cast is just so good. But that will be for next time. Hope you guys have enjoyed Kingdom Hearts. As usual, like, share, subscribe, go on to Patreon, go on to Twitch, you name it. Honestly, before I leave, I do want to give out a big shout out for a lot of people who have been new subscribers lately and have, had a lot of positive comments to these podcasts, or given me fan art of all things. That was really cool. I think it was my first ever fan art. A lot of comments about my Phoenix Wright stuff, and people saying, hey, you should be more popular or whatever. That's amazing to think that I'm getting an upward trend in things. It's not, I don't know how much it's going to lead to, but I know that especially recently things have definitely turned up, and that's because of the Boxu videos of being a big hit, Phoenix Wright being a big hit, going on Reddit and going on JRPG based forums and anime forums has been a big help and a big boost to what little I have as far as a presence. But the fact that a majority of the people have been very nice, and I've seen a lot of good positive comments lately, has really given me a lot of it's made me feel really good about my situation. I've always prided myself on trying to do the best I can, as I think that's what anybody should do if they're going to try an artistic or a content medium. But to see success in even such a small way so quickly for whatever different reason is a nice thing. So I did at least want to give a thank you to those people who have started to notice this channel in its own small way. But thank you so much. Citizen Strife, signing off.